our in-house digital marketing. She manages our social media and web content for our Piedmont chapter. She is an alumna of University of South Carolina with a degree in advertising and mass communications. She holds another degree in graphic arts from Greenville Tech. And in her career, she's helped drive product sales and launch brands with successful digital marketing plans for organizations of all sizes for over 2 decades. So with that, I think we have a real expert here to provide information and detailed discussion about digital marketing solutions. And Nicole, if you're ready, I think we're ready to
Absolutely. So just to verify, everybody's got a presentation screen up that they can see. I hope so. So thanks for everybody joining us. I want to do a very broad overview of some stuff related to digital marketing in general. Digital marketing is really any kind of marketing that is in a digital technology basis. So that can include even digital billboards would be considered digital marketing. Cell phone text message marketing is considered digital marketing, as opposed to like online marketing, which is probably a little bit closer to what we're going to cover today. But within that umbrella, I really just wanted to highlight some basic topics, which I think are very important for any size business to be addressing right away. Small, they still matter even as you scale up in size. So there will be times as your business grows, you might add some on, or you might focus harder on some of them. But no matter what, it's good to have a basic understanding of why these 5, I think, are probably some of the most important. So if we start with your website, everybody knows what that is, but there are some topics underneath a website. First of all, it's the property that you own, as compared to social media would be digital property that someone else owns. You have an account on it, but being that this is your most important property, your name is going to be a big deal. And when you're starting out, you kind of have a fresh slate, so you can pick them, but sometimes somebody already has it, or there could be businesses affiliated with your market that go out of business, or maybe they choose a different name, and sometimes those web names can become up for sale. And so knowing how to search for domain names is relevant to business owners. ICANN is the registry global. It's a standard registry for all properties. You're sort of leasing a website name. So there's differences between registries and people who are brokers of domains, but all of that falls under the umbrella of buying your domain name. And Whois is a place where you can visit, whois.com. They are all these sites that are offering to sell names, are reading what's available from the registries like ICANN. So you can go to Whois and verify if a name is already taken. GoDaddy is one everybody's probably familiar with, on top of being a company that can sell you or lease to you a domain name. They're also a web hosting company. And so that's a difference to point out, but there is the other category mentioned here is going to be web hosting. Sometimes you can find a web hosting company that will offer you a free domain name purchase. They'll offer that service as free because you're signing up with them. Some popular web hosting companies, Bluehost is kind of a newer kid on the block, but their claim to fame is probably speed. They get your site loaded quickest or more quickly than some of the other bigger competitors, because as these companies service more and more people. They have to buy more and more servers. That means more and more maintenance. And sometimes they can flounder or falter, but Bluehost sort of hit the scene and got a lot of traction for being able to support fast loading sites. SiteGround was another very popular one, probably a little bit older, around longer than Bluehost. And I mentioned GoDaddy again here. Just to back up a little bit, what I'm doing in this presentation is trying to give an overview, and then I'm also going to try to highlight some resources of focus within each of these categories we talk about. So it's not exhaustive by any means. There are plenty of other people offering these services, and I'm not really analyzing them on price, but maybe ease of use and popularity. So outside of domain names and web hosting, which can sometimes be the same people, as you're getting ready to build a website, there's going to be a distinction between web design and web development, which I'll cover next. But bring up WordPress because if you don't know of them, you have probably been to a site created by WordPress. I'll use the term website builder here as an interchangeable term with web design. But if you decide that you want to take on the building of your own website, part of the web design and the look and the feel is where WordPress comes in really handy. They have all these templates to choose from, thousands. You can pay for specialty templates, but you don't have to have the web programming background that really you almost had to seek out a specialty freelance vendor of web design services 20 years ago to get a website up and running. Today 35% of all the websites online are driven by WordPress. I bring up SquareSpace because they are also very popular, like WordPress. And let me back up just to briefly mention, some people may have familiarity with WordPress as a free blogging website provider, and they do that. They have, that's WordPress.com. WordPress.org, however, is where they're offering their website building services, and you can combine the WordPress blog onto a template for a website builder. So WordPress is very dynamic. Squarespace has its own blogging component. They also, different from WordPress, have an onboard e-commerce functionality. So for a lot of small businesses, even if it's not the mainstay what you're performing as your business online, like if you're a brick and mortar bakery and you're not necessarily shipping cakes all over the world, but you have some merch like a hat or any number of things that you might want to sell, Squarespace is a great option for that because they already have that payment processing function built in. WordPress, you can get e-commerce set up with it. A popular service that people integrate into WordPress is called WooCommerce. So all of these things I'm kind of mentioning right now deal with the web development kind of end of building a website. But the third one I wanted to bring up with regard to your initial building and designing of the site is Wix. I bring them up because Wix is a Google service. And what I've noticed with people who've built with Wix is that when they're working with search engine optimization, which is one of the topics we'll cover, their results are much faster. Google being such I think it's something like 95% of market domination in the search engine playing game that Google keeps. So you really want to be aware and stay relevant to what Google's doing, because that's where most people are. And so the longer it takes for any updates on your site to process through to their search engine and start, somebody's hunting for that bakery, let's say, and you just recently started doing some search engine optimization work on your site, other website builders and hosting companies, as opposed to Wix, might take a couple weeks. Also, when you first build a site, it always initially takes to about a month or two for their, they call them spiders, little pieces of programming that go out and scan the programming language behind your website. So when you're with Wix, that happens much quicker. And so, depending on how fast you're trying to come to market with your business idea, that might be an advantage to you to use them. So again, one of these other topics to cover was web development. I bring this up separately because there could come a time when your business scales that you suddenly need more robust functionality than what these generic template website builder services can offer. And it's just good to know what some of those functions may be. I mentioned you guys WordPress before. Blogging can operate as a separate function from just a brochure style website. But WordPress and SquareSpace both incorporate that. I mentioned how SquareSpace also has e-commerce. Shopify is a completely separate component of, you can integrate it with other website builders. You can create a standalone website within Shopify. It would be limited in some measure to functions that related to e-commerce, but those would be three very popular and widely used sort of web development end of website building considerations. And if you ever, scaled up so big that these kind of prefab services weren't what you needed, you would need to know the difference with who you got to seek help from. A web designer is going to help you with keeping your brand and image looking cohesive, whereas a web developer is really not very usually not very art inclined. They're going to be handling the functions and everything that goes on in the back end. So, if you ever came across a specialty element that you wanted to add into your website, then you would differentiate who you were looking for, maybe on like Craigslist can have contractors out there with ads on it, or designers sometimes use Behance as a popular platform for contract designers. Fiverr is really popular for sort of static graphics. I guess you could probably find video editors on Fiverr too. So anyway, these are like some of the main considerations when it comes to your property, the thing you have the most control over, but also hugely important as a component in digital marketing is social media. It's no surprise. I'm not going to cover all the social media platforms, but I picked 4 that I wanted to talk about. And I'll start with TikTok because it's really like kind of shown up on the scene and taken a lot of eyes and a lot of attention to it. Maybe a couple months ago, I might not have really pushed them because it seemed like there was a lot of political overhanging about whether it was changing ownership and some bad blood about China, perhaps. But I think that's sort of ebbing. I think the user market is growing in America, and I think, of course, for American businesses, that's a viable consideration. But to touch on some of the things that TikTok offers as a social media platform, I bring a video. People have probably seen a TikTok video, but reason this is really empowering to have an account on TikTok is because video is currently ranking it's carrying more weight with Google when it comes to searching for a business out online. The more video content you have, Google gives a bit more weight to the companies who have content posted anywhere, whether it's shares from people sharing a link from your social media account, or whether it's embedded within your website. So any platform that offers you video is going to be one worth considering. Currently, there's 800 million users of TikTok, and I think I saw a demographic of like only 58%. Well, I say only, or it could be a lot, is 58% of that user base are from China, but I think that is a much smaller number than it has been. But they are the fourth most popular app download of the social media platforms. I bring up YouTube in the same vein that I'm talking about TikTok with its power. Its ranking, it actually has more users than Facebook does, and that's simply because of the wider demographic, young to old, and the amount of time people are spending on YouTube is amazing. It's the platform most focused on for people who are trying to educate their consumer base, or people are just going to it to seek education. So if you've got a new product or something that your base isn't very familiar with, or you're trying to really differentiate some, I don't know, a manufacturing technique that you've developed, the way you might want to focus as far as building awareness would be maybe how-to videos or something of that nature on YouTube. They've got a user base of 2 billion, so that's substantial, and just a bit higher than Facebook. Mentioned video again. The nice part being that it's very common for websites to embed YouTube videos into their website, and users don't feel anything disjointed about that. Users are quite comfortable with seeing that. I bring up LinkedIn because it's a very unique social media platform for business to business marketing. And it's still a good professional social media network. So it's good to be out there just so people know what you're doing, have a good sense of your reputation. You can build an audience, a very intimate audience on LinkedIn, even though it's a smaller size user base with 300 million. You do have a chance to have more activity, I think, because people are on that platform using it specifically for business related topics, whether it's telling about the widget they sell or whether it's networking. So they're maybe a little bit easier to get a hold of and get attention from. I personally have used I've focused lead generation tactics on the LinkedIn platform with great success. And that's without really using their sales navigator. So this would be free. This is free stuff to get a business up and running on social media. The last one I bring up is Instagram. I think I picked these four because they each have unique aspects for whatever type of business you may be starting or already running. But I think Instagram's claim to fame was that they were so visual heavy in the beginning. And so it's a great platform to build your brand through imagery. People are kind of exhausted online in general, and heavy text heavy kind of messaging in your marketing can be you can lose some efficiency of reaching your target market because there's a deluge of data online. And so Instagram kind of shook that up with it being focused on photo and video. They've got a user base of 1 billion. And one of the really neat things I learned about Instagram when I did a comparison of social media platforms is their average user is spending 30 minutes in a single session. YouTube might have some longer durations, but they're probably flipping through various channels, whereas an Instagram user is receiving your message directly in a session for a solid 30 minutes. I just think that's astounding. So moving on to a third topic here, which I touched on earlier. SEO stands for search engine optimization, and you can use social media and your website for strategy with search engine optimization, basically meaning you're trying to get your properties, your content recognized before competition or before other people of similar content type based on like keywords. There's on-page SEO and there's off-page SEO. So looking at what on-page SEO is, it's really important that you know about the meta data that exists on every page of your website. Um, there was a restaurant I worked with that had a small budget when we started out, just as a little side story here on SEO. And we did a complete revise of their website, and we saw some really positive traction being gained in the number of users, and the right keywords were what they were using when they found us. But the budget sort of had to put the work on hold, and the SEO component of building their new site didn't get tended to right away. So they sort of plateaued off at I mean, I'll just throw the number 5 out there for easy arithmetic for the analogy here. But by the time they had some more money to put into the SEO tactics, the only thing that was done was title tags and meta descriptions added to all. In fact, we only added to half of the pages of their website, and it doubled their monthly traffic. So this is a really powerful one for people who maybe have already been in business, had a website running. It's worth taking a look to see how well you're performing with search engine optimization. And if you want to learn it yourself, there are tons of tutorials online. I use a site by an online marketer named Neil Patel, Patel. His website is wonderful, tons of tutorials, or you can go and find a local person who specializes perhaps in SEO to help you if that's not something that you want to take on. But another component of on-page SEO is related to keywords. How are people finding you? And those keywords can be scattered. You can get a keyword in your website when you're initially checking out purchasing a domain name for a new web property. You could, I mean, these days it's like those one word website domains are very hot commodity. If you happen to find a 1 or 2 word domain name that relates to your marketplace, you've really hit a jackpot. And that's why some companies are leaning like kayak, for traveling. Like that's kind of a reach. Kayaks aren't really the outdoor gear we might think of, and yet they were able to take a different word and still make a web property for themselves. So going back to keywords, if you can find a web name available that has a keyword relevant to your business, that's wonderful. But you don't have to focus on just the website name. You can include those keywords in the title of pages. You can include them in the descriptions for those pages. You can include them in the actual text content throughout your website. And this also works with social media. SEO tactics can sort of play across both those properties, but you will always have more chance to manipulate and control it when it's your own website. You can hire SEO writers. I know there's plenty of them on Fiverr. I'm sure you can find them on Craigslist also, but if writing isn't really up your alley, or you could even have someone do research on keywords for you, then you could be the one that sort of edits someone else's writing and drops in the keywords you already know are relevant to your marketplace. The third thing I would talk about for on-page SEO is relevant to images. This is got a lot of aspects to consider when you think about the images that you put on your website and how it changes your ranking. Most important right now with Google is that when you are viewing a website on a mobile device, whether that's a cell phone or a tablet that you carry, it's a smaller screen and often a different aspect ratio than standard computer monitors. And so Google cares about your web site images being responsive. That's the industry term for meaning they shrink and shift in size so that it's agreeable in design for the end user. That's something that those website builders I mentioned, like Squarespace and WordPress, they do that automatically. The templates that you might opt to pick to build your website already have programming laid within them that automatically will adjust for various devices to display your images properly. But if you were to contract with an independent to build a custom site for you, you would want to make sure that they understood the importance of responsive imagery. And more on images is not just to be responsive and shifting sizes for devices, is simply to have them optimized well in the first place, even on the largest display people have, because that relates to how quickly a page can load. And Google likes pages that load quicker. Your end user likes pages that load quicker. So images also carry alt tags with them, alt meaning like alternative, and those are important for what am I trying to say? Accessibility standards. For instance, people who are handicapped, maybe they have vision problems. If they scan their mouse, let's say, over your site because they want to hear a call out of what the image is, if they can't see it well on their own, or for whatever reason, you have the chance to use SEO inside of the alt tags. You can plug keywords in there, and all those little elements being part of the back end programming of your website, that all helps with getting you ranking higher. So any chance you get to manipulate sort of dominion over your keywords is an SEO on-page tactic that will help you gain higher rankings in Google. But there's off-page SEO, which is very important also. And these are things that you don't quite have as much direct control over, but backlinks is an enormous component of off-page SEO. That, along with, pages that load fast, images that are responsive, and keywords that are relevant to what users are searching for, Google likes to see that your site is popular. So you're going to get links because people are interested in the content you post, or you're going to get links because you purposely go out there and hunt for them. And you can contract with people who can help you develop a backlink campaign, or you could simply focus on developing really great, meaningful content for your customer base. But the more links you get, the better off you're going to be. So that's sort of hand in hand with why blogging is such an effective way to gain to increase your rankings, because you have a chance to build keywords. You can embed videos in these blogs, and if the right person has interest, they share it on social media, their friend shares it with someone else. Before you know it, your single blog post or your single video that maybe it was a how-to video, people maybe had more interest in that how-to video than you would have thought, and then it starts getting shared all over the social media platforms. The next thing you know, they're clicking on your site because they want to learn more about your company, or simply Google is giving you a higher rank because it sees that the content is popular. That's why I brought in social media here. You also have an independent control over backlinks to your website with your own social media accounts across platforms. So a tactic to use, rather than create original separate kind of entry of a text or an image on, let's say, Facebook. If you're on Facebook, rather than get on Facebook and kind of willy-nilly, what do I want to talk today to my audience here on Facebook about, keep in mind that you always want to drive people off of those platforms and to the website which you own, because you're hoping either to drive them to a sales component on your website, or to get possibly email address from them. Let's say you drive them to sign up for a newsletter on your website. Those kinds of things are a little harder to control on social media platforms. And so that's why you want to be driving through backlinks off of social media to your site. But you can get reviews on social media. You can get reviews on Google. I didn't bring up Google as a social media platform, even though it almost is operating like one these days with Google My Business. But the reviews that your clients might leave on Google are highly, highly important. And it is sort of a component of off-page SEO, to get reviews, to monitor them. If they're bad, you want to respond to them in as fair a way as you can and quickly. People like to see that companies have dialogue with their user base. If a bad review is given and no response shows, then people think something fishy is going on, or that, even if it's like I've done sort of brand management for people's online reviews. And even if you just say to somebody like, we're real sorry that happened, can we, when you come back in, can you ask for, whatever the owner or manager's name, and we'll see if we can make that right. Or if somebody didn't like a dish at a restaurant, you tell them, like, come in here and tell us how you like us to prepare it next time, and we'll be sure the chef. I mean, people just like to see that. So all of that is sort of like what content is being created that you don't have control over, and how can it help your rankings. The fourth component of digital marketing to cover here, which is still related to the others we've talked about, is your email functionality, either as a standalone email marketing service, or simply as your means of communicating with your customer base. If they started by walking in your store, they maybe sign a ledger when they come in, or maybe you're taking business cards from people and then entering that data in. No matter what source you're getting your emails for your clients, whether they're sharing it on Facebook and you get it that way, or whether sign up for a newsletter on your website, using emails for marketing is a huge and helpful service to include in an overall digital marketing plan for a small business. And so I brought four email marketing services up in this presentation. MailChimp being one that's great. They're hugely popular, and they have a forever free tier. You have paid services, but their basic is forever free. You can integrate your MailChimp email marketing with a WordPress site that's already been built. They also integrate with Shopify e-commerce sites. The reason all that is important is you may eventually want some of your communications to be automated through, once a person has made a purchase, then you want a follow-up email to them about, did they like their purchase? So whether you're selling a lot, or you may eventually sell a lot, it's just good to know that these services exist and which ones are free or easy to use. Because it's forever free, MailChimp brands the emails it's sending out to your customer base in exchange for getting a service as powerful and well-known and well-functioning as theirs. Having the little MailChimp logo at the bottom may not bother anybody. It depends how much control you want to have over it. Constant Contact is an email marketing service that our nonprofit uses. In fact, they appeal in great extent to nonprofits in general, if that's something any of you guys are using. They are known for being extraordinarily beginner friendly. You don't have to know a great deal about automating sales pipelines. They can just manage the basics. If you are a heavy Facebook ad social media campaigns, they have great integration with that. They also integrate with Shopify, just like MailChimp does. And Constant Contact has, for my use with that, I would say they have great tracking. Who's opening, who's clicking through, who's unsubscribing, and reporting to you on what's happening with all of the campaigns, email campaigns that you're sending out. ConvertKit is also highly popular and affordable service. They're very popular with bloggers. They do some more powerful things perhaps than MailChimp and Constant Contact do, in that you can automate content for people, which might be of importance if you're doing if your business is related to information heavy um, marketing pieces, perhaps in healthcare, if you're selling maybe a holistic kind of treatments to people and they want to know maybe stats or comparisons like, well, how good is this? How effective is this holistic treatment as compared to some traditional ones I might get from a doctor? You might want to educate them and advance them through your conversions from interest to a subscriber using ConvertKit. And ConvertKit also allows for much more targeted campaigns, whereas the others are sort of broad-based. You can get more specialized messages. So if you have a highly segmented customer base, ConvertKit might be the email marketing service for you. Drip is one I have not used, but I've read and heard great things about, and they are basically aiming for the e-commerce component of website owners. So they also integrate with WordPress built sites. That Woo is short for WooCommerce, meaning they can integrate with WooCommerce as your e-commerce functionality within a WordPress built website. And they are a little pricier, but they have a much more powerful back end functionality than the other three mentioned. So last that I wanted to cover is CRMs. And I think it's often overlooked as a digital marketing component, but it is a marketing tool. CRM stands for customer relationship management, or some people say customer relationship marketing, but it is digital based and it deals with how you interact with your client base. And as such, it is a digital marketing tool. It's often not the first thing people consider, because if you're just starting out, maybe you say to yourself, well, I don't really have a huge customer base yet. I'm trying to build that. What do I need? A database driven repository of all of my records and transactions and the names and contact information or purchase cycle phase that my customers are at if I'm just starting out. And that would be valid, except that one day you hope that you will need that. And so it's worth considering what options are out there. HubSpot is a hugely popular CRM. I'm just going to call them CRMs to save the syllables. It's free and you can have unlimited users, meaning, like, if you want to bring in contractors to manage some of your digital marketing aspects like content creation, or even if it's a sales kind of role that you bring contractors in, you can subscribe them to your account with a particular user email and sign in, and limit some of their functions. And you can have as many as you want, open them, close them, all for free. And they are known for streamlining the sales pipeline, which is in and of itself one of the aspects that a CRM is going to help you do, as far as keeping track of when did this when did John Doe come into our business's life? Is this a new user? Did he just reach out to us on the website? Or is this a user who's already been purchasing from us? That being all the phases of your purchase cycle, and the sales pipeline being how you push those users through it. This is what HubSpot can help you with tracking. HubSpot is also an email marketing service. So you're getting the CRM and the email marketing together with HubSpot, a free service. Zoho, I just learned about really through one of the clients we mentored with Score, and I researched it. I found a lot of great great information about it. It's very affordable. It's not free, but just like HubSpot, they're gonna be automating your processing of your customer base through the phases that you identify as being separate, and worthy of focus, amongst your customer base that you've aggregated in the CRM. Um, Zoho's kind of claim to fame out there as compared to other CRMs is that they help you with lead generation, in that they're gonna sort of like an ear be listening to what people are talking about on social media platforms and generate potential leads for you, based off keywords that you tell it that you want it to be. Scraping is sort of another word for like peeking or surveying or out there looking for stuff. So they're going to be scraping social media platforms for keywords or phrases that your business particularly wants. And hopefully that leads you to look in the right place for where to generate new business, people who are already interested in what you're doing. Salesforce is, I would be shocked if somebody out there had never heard of Salesforce or some of their offshoot services. They are affordable when you're starting out on the small business end, but the real winning quality of Salesforce is their scalability. No matter how quickly or greatly your business might grow, and that could happen very fast for some people who've got a great product to sell. They're just opening up a website to start selling online. If it takes off like hotcakes, you might quickly find that some other CRM or any digital marketing service that was supporting you, suddenly they can't anymore. You've grown too fast and they don't have the tools. Salesforce, you're not going to have that problem with. And Salesforce, from beginning to end, and as many campaigns as you're running, as many sites as you might be running it on. For instance, if e-commerce is just sort of an overarching business goal of yours, and you have a variety of web properties and they each are differentiated among the types of products they're selling, it does not matter. You can manage them all together with Salesforce from front to back. But to back away from one that can be a huge growing monster of a powerhouse CRM, it's worth mentioning that Microsoft has CRM functionality inboard the software that is included with Microsoft Office in the form of Excel and Access. So if you're not looking to sort of run head on against a learning curve with technology, or you need something to serve as a repository for gathering customer data as you're growing, you have tools immediately at your access. If you have a Windows operating system, most systems come with Microsoft Excel and Access. Access is going to be sort of like the input of your customers' contact data. And then Excel, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the spreadsheets, but the reason they're unique to bring up is Excel creates CSV files, which can be uploaded into your other accounts like LinkedIn. You can have a LinkedIn company page and all of your maybe your newsletter registrants on your website. Maybe you export them off of your website into an Excel spreadsheet. You create a CSV file, then you can upload that CSV file into your LinkedIn account, and presto, all those email addresses are now able for you to hunt those people down right there in LinkedIn. So that's sort of a lesser known or lesser used tool that is readily at most people's disposal. Of course, Excel and Access are available on both PC operating systems or Mac. And it's worth mentioning that the Google suite of tools like Google Docs, Google has an Excel style software. Google has fashioned a lot of those tools after Microsoft's powerful Office suite. And so if you're familiar with the Microsoft Office suite, you're probably already familiar with the Google tools. Access, you might want to customize how it looks and how you're entering your customer data into the database that it's creating for you. And so there are services out online that will give you templates for free to create such an interface. And so being that this stuff is free and accessible, and it maintains the most basic root data that all of these other systems use, I think it's very worthwhile to address that Excel and Access are viable for that. Um, and I want to give some time for questions about any one of these topics or how they all function among one another. So that's why I left this kind of very generic, but to quickly touch on how all these topics integrate with one another. Um, they can be addressed separately. They should be considered overall. If you think about your email as sort of that's how you're going to maintain your contact with your customers, and then your social media platforms being a chance for you to also have a dialogue. You can have some back and forth conversation with people through email, through your social media platforms. Um, the SEO component, which is going to drive up your rankings, is also going to, along with social media and email marketing, all three of these aspects of digital marketing should be driving people to your website, which can serve as a place you're garnering brand new leads or where you're pushing them through the sales cycle. And then from that transactional data or a list of people who've signed up for your newsletter, you're funneling that data and those transactions into your CRM so that you can continue to target those people back again through social media, SEO, and email based off of who's buying what, when, what are we seeing the most interest in. This is overall the digital marketing sales funnel. It doesn't necessarily have to be sales if your goal of your business is awareness, maybe a political campaign, you still can utilize the digital marketing funnel concept of driving people from being aware that you exist, to getting interested in what it is you're talking about, to considering purchasing or obliging a loyalty to an idea or a mission statement of your maybe a nonprofit, and then ultimately decision would be the final sale or the conversion of the person to a lifelong customer. So that's how all five of these are kind of the basics that you want to be aware of and tie together. And of course, if you need to know more about any of these or one in particular, do not overlook the immense library that score.org maintains. They have, I looked on Score today just to see how many articles or webinars or workshops had addressed customer relationship management. And it was 2 pages with like 10 results each. And some of these are blog articles, some of these are hour-long webinars like the ones we're doing tonight, but there is just a huge, vast library of data on that site for you guys to look at. And so I think that's the last slide, and I'll end it here and open up for questions. I would love to hear about what specifics you guys want to know about or what businesses you're running. So I'll let Ken can maybe like help if they're coming in on chat. Maybe you tell me what people maybe are saying, because I don't think I see the chat window.
Well, you've got, yes, I just want to remind the participants, if they're not familiar with it, all they have to do is unmute at the bottom so that you can ask Nicole directly. We also have a chat where you can post a question that way, and I can refer that to her. So either way would be a way to communicate any questions you may have. I actually have a couple, 2 questions for our participants. I have a Laylee and a Lynn And I'm trying to check our registration list just so we know who attended, and I don't see either of their names. Could you tell me, Layla, Laylee, or Lynn, what name you registered under?
I think you can also hit the space bar to unmute yourself.
Yes, that's another option. Again, Laylee or Lynn, could you tell me what name you registered under? Thank you, Lynn. I've got your name on my list. Thank you very much. And then Lynn. Or Layla, I have not heard from. Well, Laylee, I'm sorry. And does anyone have questions for Nicole?
Now, I'll just add in while you guys maybe are ruminating over some of the stuff we talked about. I didn't really cover content creation in this. It's a big topic to cover, and of course the marketing that you do and how you want to present yourself to your customer base can vary widely, but you know, mentioning that video is so powerful in Google. I recently learned about a tool that teachers are using to create sort of a video presentation when they're teaching their curriculum. And the tool, the service is free. It was called Screencast-O-Matic. So even if you don't have a video camera, I mean, everyone has a video camera on their phone, fine. But say you don't want to be holding your camera out like a selfie, if you want to have something maybe that still looks more controlled than holding a cell phone, you could create a style of video presentation using that Screencast-O-Matic. And another content creation tool that's free and easy to use if you are just starting your business out and you want to get a logo created, or you need to fluff out the website you're building on WordPress with some imagery. Canva, it's like canvas, like a painting canvas, but without the S at the end. Canva is a great free service for generating eye-catching graphics. But I can try to come up with, from my own experience, more resources if somebody out there's needs something that want to focus. I've worked with a lot of small businesses, and I understand budgets are always a concern. So if there is something any of you guys need that you know right away, like this is the specific thing, I might be able to strum up from memory a low cost or free idea for you. Or if you think of anything later, even, you can always email our, you can find our, what do we got? info@PiedmontScore.org. You can reach us there. You can sign up for our newsletter there. You can always reach out to us specifically with questions.
I see that Pamela said canva.com is great. Canva,
Yeah,
you're familiar with that one?
yeah, yeah, they're really good. Um, as far as web building, I've done a lot in WordPress. Weebly is another website builder for people who want to get a site going right away and don't want to spend a lot of money and don't have a lot of tech background. Um, Also worth mentioning is if anybody is a student, you can get the Adobe Creative Cloud, which includes a variety of software like Photoshop, the powerhouse image editing software. You can get highly discounted versions, a student subscription with the Adobe Creative Cloud that gains you access to website building software, image editing software. As a student myself, I'm learning a lot more about what's available free or cheap for students. So I'm always happy to share that with others that might not know.
I see a question from Lynn. Is the spelling screencast-o-matic?
Yes, I know it seems
I'm not sure
long.
which.
It's I can spell it out. Screencast, SCRENCAST, and then the letter O, and then Matic, MATIC. I haven't used it, but I did sign up for a free account, and then I read a tutorial about it, and it seemed really easy enough. Even if you, I think as long as you cited the source, like if you were to create a presentation or some sort of video and you wanted to compare it maybe to some other video you found online, you can play the video as a source material, and then the Screencast-O-Matic software creates a dotted line on your screen, and anything that's inside that dotted line is being recorded for your version of whatever it is. So if you had a video already playing on your screen, the Screencast-O-Matic is going to record that for you. And then I think even if you were to use that on your site, if you reached out to someone who's already created content, people are very willing to share the stuff they've already created as long as they get credit. And if it helps you and it gets your marketing pieces produced quicker by leaning on what others are already doing out there, that's really a neat aspect of digital marketing in general, is that the sheer audience that exists online is so massive. It's almost silly to think you're going to sequester any number of them off into some private space where only you get to talk to those people. So it sort of builds a synergy even among your competition. You can find that the things you do with your web properties and social media accounts create a synergy about awareness of a topic, or as you maybe in a directory listing, let's say if you signed your website up with hey, I'm a plumber, I'm working in the Simpsonville area, I want to be listed on this website right alongside all my competition. It doesn't really work like that. It's almost better that you guys are all listed on that directory site. So it's a little bit unique as compared to buying a newspaper spread was 30 years ago, or a magazine spread. Anyway, just some things to think about. There's all sorts of creative ways to come up with how to digitally market yourself online.
Nicole, I have a question from Jeff. Can you revisit ICANN and who's this and the differences?
Yes. So anybody that's out there selling domain names is they're gonna be okay. I shouldn't say sell, because you nor I nor nobody owns those names. Those letters stay in sort of, for lack of a better term, public domain. No one can own them. It's sort of like saying I own Mars or whatever, but you lease them. And so when you buy a domain hosting subscription, you have renewal periods, but all of the data that those brokers who are brokering the sale of a subscription to a website name to you are referring when a website name has been subscribed to and sort of quote unquote bought or used by a user. ICANN is the registry. They keep in track who owns what or for whatever time period and under what broker, who sold it to them, so that if God forbid someone were to hijack a web property and put some god awful pornographic or otherwise illegal or detracting information, they want to always be able to track what was the hosting company, who is the registered owner of that site. And so we have to have like a ledger of who's owning what domain at what time, where did they get it, how long is it slated to be theirs. And that's what ICANN is that registry. Whereas I mentioned on that screen, like Whois and GoDaddy as being people who tell you this website is available for you to buy. And we know that because the registry said nobody owns it right now. But there are more than one registry, but ICANN is sort of the overarching regulatory body. But I think even GoDaddy got into the registrar game. The specifics are a little tech heavy for what most of our audiences are. But if you want to learn more about that, I'd be glad to point you to some resources online that help explain the difference between ICANN and other registries, and even more about looking for domain names or brokering them. If that's something of specific interest to you, I used to work for a domain name brokerage. That was the business model. All we did was bought and sold domain names. So if that's something that interests you, by all means, drop me your email and I can share more data on that with you. I hope that answered.
Nicole, I wanted to tell the group that I did launch the evaluation. We appreciate them completing that to give us some feedback about the results from their experience this evening.
Yeah. And if you guys really liked the workshop, or maybe if you liked another one, or if you've ever been mentored with a Square mentor, we always appreciate the Google reviews. It's not about us trying to sell anything. It's about getting our community awareness up. And so the more that you guys talk about us, the more people like you we can help. And so I'm always trying to get, whenever I present a workshop, I try to tell everybody, you have to do that independently. We can't really link it to you. But we'd love it if you left us a review on the Google My Business component online.
Well, does anyone else have any questions for Nicole this evening? Lynn, one of our participants, said that she very much appreciated you, Nicole, and it was a good webinar.
Oh, great. Yeah, we can also email you a slide deck, or our workshop volunteer Jerry will be loading them up. All our workshops get loaded up on our YouTube channel. So I know this one was kind of speaking heavy as opposed to looking at a slide deck, but if you ever wanted to refer back to it, you can find our YouTube channel and revisit any of the ones you enjoyed, or see other ones that you've never seen before.
I've got another question from Jeff. How would you rate the ACT CRM?
That was one of the first ones I ever used. Oh my goodness, back in like 2000. For what the days that I was using it, it was great, and it did more than I even knew was available in the world of marketing. But I don't know what their product has developed into today, and I don't know any businesses that are using it. And that doesn't mean they're no good or that I couldn't stand by them, because that was the first CRM I ever used. Sorry, as a nerdy data person, that kind of stuck out to me. But I know that some small business owners won't necessarily be interested in ACT because of not wanting to pay up front for it. So there, being the HubSpot is free, that can be attractive. For functionality, again, I don't know what new functions ACT has added today, but I would offer that if they were the enterprise pioneer of the times when I first graduated college, then I would probably liken them to Salesforce. I mean, the dynamic variety of control and communication and personalization and tracking that Salesforce can do with how you're marketing your client base. But then again, price will also be the issue there, much like ACT might be for some people. I hope that wasn't too broad. I don't mean to skirt standing behind them or not, but yeah, ACT was great. I loved it.
One of our participants, Stufona Lada, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, thank you for the information. You brought up points I hadn't considered while designing my website. I will definitely incorporate them.
For sure. In fact, Stefana, recently I gathered a small document for a client that was looking specifically for some resources on building websites. And so I already have that and would be glad to forward that to you if that's where the stage you're in. And so some of it was online in general, and some of it came from our Score library. But if that's something you're interested in, I'll forward you that document I created. You can check some more stuff out.
Yes, he would like you he would like to do that.
Sure.
Linwood as well.
Yeah. We could forward it to all of you guys. Maybe if that's where, I know that's a lot of that's sort of like the biggest hurdle in the beginning. When you think of digital marketing, you need a website. Everybody tells you got to get out there, and that can be kind of the first step that counts, is getting it built and buying the name. It all seems kind of terrifying when you've never done it, but that stuff is very easy. And so yeah, if a lot of you attendees, or if that's the stage you're at, would be glad to forward all that resources to any of you.
Well, again, any more questions for Nicole this evening? If not, if you haven't completed the evaluation, we appreciate you doing that. Certainly, thank you for attending. And I'm sure you learned a lot about this topic, as well as perhaps information about Score you weren't familiar with. I have another question. What are your thoughts on text marketing?
Yeah, I thought about whether I would bring it up tonight, and I opted against it. But being that you're asking, I found, I think it's called Tango, a local retailer that I use. I couldn't help myself when I went in and bought something the other day. I had to ask the owner. I was like, who do you guys use exactly? Because it was almost like the thing was reading my mind. The minute I would need the product, I seemed to get a text from them. And the variation in what they were offering, whether it was a discount or just for today, or this product specifically because they knew I'd already bought it. It seemed to know exactly what I needed, whether they were controlling that or whether the service was automating it. It didn't matter to me. I had to ask who was running it. And so well, what do I think about it in general as part of the toolbox? Um, would really depend. I mean, I would sort of stick to it being with sales and e-commerce, although, I mean, maybe you guys saw it like I did, the number of spammy political texts I got.
Mm.
Other people are using it for other things than selling products, but I think you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. Honestly, I didn't even ask what that Tango service was running. um, I'm trying to look up to be sure whether I'm getting the name right. I know it was Tango something, but yeah, okay, I got Tango Mobile, so that must be them. Their website is T for Tango, F for Frank, and the numeral 7, tf7.com. So if you were wanting to get more information about pricing, you heard it here. I think they're great, and I was on the user end, the customer buying end. So, but yeah, I think mobile searching for businesses is gaining traction. You can, if you already have a website and you're able to look at your Google Analytics, the analytics will tell you how many people came to your website via a mobile device versus a desktop. And if you take a look at it, you'll probably be seeing what the trend is, which something like 80% of searches performed online are coming from mobile. And so right in that vein is, well, if the hands and the eyes are on the cell phone, then shouldn't my marketing efforts be there also? And so to your question, being aware of and utilizing mobile marketing, if it's not the first thing you think of today, it may very well be even more important over the next few years. But there's trends of technology, cell phones went from real tiny and then they got big and they got tiny again.
Mhm.
So it's this sort of user trend. What are people doing? Where are they at?
I've got another question. What is your take on voicemail marketing?
Um, Well, I think that would sort of go hand in hand with mobile marketing, whether it's text based, SMS message driven, or, it's maybe an extension of telemarketing. I sure hit some phones. I don't have any stats about return on investment or conversions with it. But ultimately for small business owners, I think the issues they face, if it's not obvious right away, what branch of digital marketing should I be in? Like perhaps texting my marketing messages versus emailing versus uh, targeted ads on my website. If you don't know what to focus on, then you can only look at what your competition is doing and try to be different from them, or try something for a small time and always be able to track it. Always be able to track the results of your performance. I haven't had clients using it, but I can't say that it isn't a high performing branch of marketing, of mobile marketing. Um, I am curious about that now, and I'm going to learn more about that. So, if you want, we can have a dialogue about that as I learn more. I can ask some of my client base who has used it. But I mean, in the old days when we hit the phones, the stats were like if you call 100 people who've never heard of you, 10 of them will be warm enough to engage you in a conversation instead of just no, click and hang up on you. I know this is a little different than voicemail marketing, but it's still in the brand of the arm of like telephonic messaging. So of the 10 that maybe are a warm up to your message, your marketing message, maybe 3 turn into sales. So I don't know, inbound calls and the outgoing messages that you leave, there's all sorts of ways to incorporate branding and marketing in the telephone and voice arena. And I don't know I'm not versed enough in the pricing and in the performance of some of those, but I'm now very curious. I want to know more. So
Jeff
don't know.
has a follow-up. He said the reason he asks is his boss has found a voicemail blast marketing where it sends out thousands of voicemails at once.
Well, the worst that's going to happen is you get put on a do not, or they put their number on a do not call list. Email is much easier for people to verify where it came from, versus there's so much going on with robocalls these days. I don't mean to say because it's harder to get in trouble for using, you should try it. But I am saying that if you were to upset or bother an end user, it wouldn't be as awful a thing as if you, so let's say you were emailing people and for some reason the functionality of your unsubscribe button wasn't working. If you ticked somebody off well enough, you could possibly catch a fine if it was being generated from an email marketing service, whether it was the service's fault or you're ignoring it. Whereas I would just say that that's less likely of a wall to run into with the marketing you're talking about. And therefore, if it's like a numbers game, 1,000 go out. If you really tick off 950 or 980, the worst that will happen is the call can't be made anymore. They just don't answer it. Whereas if 20 out of that 1,000 were interested, I don't know what the offer is on the other end of what you're doing, but maybe the risk reward is an attractive balance, just something to think about. There is also the risk. You don't, if it's a high ticket item, I wouldn't risk ticking off a large number of people. But if it's maybe if it's awareness, I mean, sometimes people are like, I don't want to hear about it today, but maybe another time I do. And so for a barrage of messages shooting out to somebody, that might be okay. I don't know. Always track and test results, or even follow up with a survey. Like, did you get that call from us? Can we interest you in more like that? Or are you looking to buy today? Whatever it is to verify how well stuff is working.
So you're saying you develop metrics, right, to evaluate
exactly.
these programs? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and so many of those services we talked about tonight have the metrics already kind of identified and reports, generated for you, so that you don't have to come up with the system for how to analyze how well it's performing. They do it for you, which
That's
is
valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, very valuable. Yeah.
Well, I don't see any other questions. Again, thank you for everyone participating. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank
I
you.
certainly learned a lot. I'm sure others did as well.
Great.
And hopefully everyone's completed the evaluation. And unless somebody has something else, I think we're done for this evening.
Well, I sure enjoyed it. One last note I'll say, we touched on LinkedIn, and there is on our YouTube channel. If any of you guys wanted to know more about the business to business marketing we talked about, I went in great detail on that presentation. So just one last great resource for you to check out. But thank you guys, all of you. And I hope to see you soon.